So with that, I'm going to hand over to our first speaker of the day. I mentioned that we hosted a reception for a summit of leaders in the nanosphere. One of the things that I've learned in working more with Branden is that, and I just realized I have your name spelled wrong, Branden. I'm so sorry. I put as I introduced you, I noticed that. Is the fact that we tend to work in our little siloed areas of research in very focused little compartmentalized areas. But the idea of something like nano literally touches all aspects of science, all domains, all research that happens has some sort of component in it that relates to nano. And we understand that nano is completely pivotal to the future of really the science impact. It's everything. And getting to work with Branden has been fantastic. He himself comes from the user facility community, and I'll let him speak to that more. But today he's really going to provide us some more information about how the user facility community really connects to this idea of nano, and how cooperation across these different types of facilities and different domain areas even is really, I think, the kind of future we want to look towards. So with that, I will hand it over to Branden. Thank you very much. We're so excited to have you here, and thank you to everybody for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lily, and good to see everybody. Good morning. I'm going to try to share my screen here. We can get that done. That looks good. So yeah, as Lily said, I feel like I'm back with my people. Prior to my current role, I was at the Molecular Foundry, which is a user facility for nanoscience at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. And so thanks for joining me today. I wanted to give you a little bit of a lay of the land in terms of what people are thinking about here in Washington, D.C., and really what are the priorities of the federal government as it relates to the matters of user facilities and SSURF. So just a little context, I'm currently the director of the National Nanotechnology Coordination Office, which facilitates the NNI, the National Nanotechnology Initiative. Of course, I'm with the government, so there are a lot of acronyms here, and I'll try to spell them out for you. But as far as a little bit of history, the NNI, the initiative itself, was started originally as the brainchild of Bill Clinton in the Clinton administration, end of the century, early 2000s, where he was recognizing the potential for nanoscale science and technology, and recognizing that there was going to be a need to have federal investment in this field, and that it would take some time. And so I always like putting up this quote where he's talking about 20 or more years, because now we are 20 or more years, and we can look back and see what we got right, maybe some things that might need a little bit of a tweak. Following the announcement by President Clinton at Caltech in 2000, the momentum continued into the next administration, where you have a picture here of George Bush signing the 21st Century National Nanotechnology Research and Development Act, which codified a lot of this into law. So what is this act? It's basically saying that we as a government, we as a country want to be leaders in nanoscale science and technology. And in order to do that, we need to have collaboration across all of the different federal agencies that have a role to play. And so this is not simply the fundamental science agencies, the NSFs or the NIHs or DOEs. This is really across the board, and we want to make sure that we have everybody at the table. We want to have the Forest Service there. We want to have Department of Transportation. We want EPA and CDC to all be thinking about not only what the frontier is scientifically, but what that means to our society, how we can fast track things into product in a safe and sustainable way. So you see a kind of kaleidoscope of federal agency seals. I don't expect you to know or even recognize what some of this alphabet soup is, just recognizing that this is a full national activity. And so my office, the NNCO, the coordination office, is kind of this dotted line from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy here at the top. And that kind of gives us this agency agnostic perch to bring these various agencies together, making sure that they can find opportunities to collaborate, identify gaps, etc., and hopefully run the country in a slightly more efficient and impactful way. Now, I'm sure a lot of you know and love the field of nanotechnology, but some of you might not. And so I don't hold that against you. But I would throw out this definition. This is from the law from 2003, and it defines nanotechnology in a way that I think, honestly, all of us in the sciences can get behind. This is not talking about the nanometer, interestingly enough. This is talking about understanding, measuring, and manipulating and manufacturing things at the atomic and molecular scale, taking advantage of the emerging properties that come when you're working on these fundamental length scales at this kind of the extreme end of precision and understanding. And I think that when you're thinking about any field of science or any user facility for that matter, we are all trying to push this envelope. And so while I think that there are some user facilities that might be more part of the NNI, I would say that all of you are part of the greater umbrella. And so I want to make sure that you all feel welcome as part of this community. So when I say this community, when I say the NNI, I wanted to show you kind of what the 5 pillars of the NNI, what they are. And this was established in October of 2021. And these are the 5 goals of the NNI. And as you can see, I've kind of underlined the key words. Goal 3, infrastructure, that is the sweet spot for this group. The idea of shared infrastructure, user facilities and otherwise, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about investing in tools, in knowledge that can benefit the broader research and development community. But I want to point out that each of the other 4 goals are critical to the infrastructure story. Of course, all of you are promoting not just research in goal 1, but the commercialization by supporting small businesses or even large businesses at your user facilities. I would also argue that the user facility model is a tremendous way to help train and expand our workforce, as well as develop best practices in terms of environmental health and safety, as well as developing team science in an inclusive and diverse way, which is a lot of what Goal 5 is about. So call me biased coming from a user facility, but I kind of feel like the user facilities can claim a significant piece of each of these 5 goals of the NNI strategic plan. So of course, that's the NNI. What are the priorities of the Biden-Harris administration, of the country? And so again, I've kind of given you the cliff notes, according to Branden anyway, and tried to highlight some of the key words. These are things that if you don't see something that is exactly what you work on, have no fear. These are simply areas to think about our R&D portfolio and to draw some attention to them as they are top priorities for this administration. So one example is, talking about the climate crisis. Something that we are doing is something called Nano for Earth, which is applying nanotechnologies that are particularly high potential for climate change solutions. And so we had a workshop and we've had roundtable discussions. In fact, there's one in a few weeks on November 2nd on greenhouse gas capture, which is something that I know many of the researchers supported by your user facilities are interested in. And so this is a way in which we find overlap between the NNI, the nanotechnology portfolio, and the portfolio of the Biden-Harris administration. But the thing I wanted to really talk to you about today are these last 3 bullets. And so if you look at them, We're talking about reducing barriers and inequities, bolstering the R&D and industrial innovation in this country, and strengthening and advancing our research. Well, it's easy to see how user facilities play in each of these parts. One of my favorite phrases coming from Nobelist Carolyn Bertozzi, who was a former director of the Foundry, she often talked about the democratization of science, and I love that so much. That's really what that first bullet is, and I think user facilities play a key role in addressing this priority on behalf of the nation. So one of the challenges, however, is that we have so many different networks, so many different programs around user facilities. And I'll tell you a quick story. I joined this office a little over a year ago, coming from the NSRCs, the Nanoscale Science Research Centers funded by the Department of Energy. And my deputy, she comes from the user facilities funded by the NSF, the NNCI. And I came in thinking that I understood user facilities pretty well, but I realized very quickly how ignorant I was of this very sizable and impactful program on the NSF side of the house. And interestingly, my deputy Quinn, she had the same kind of light bulb moment. And so what we decided to do was to make sure that we took the first step, hopefully a first of many, to bring together a number of different leaders from a number of different programs, from a number of different federal agencies, and put them all in one room. And recognizing that they all are a little bit different, they play a different role in the continuum of user support, but they have a lot more in common than they have differences. And this is the event that Lily alluded to. SSURF was kind enough to help support some of this activity that really was first of its kind, to bring people together and recognize those commonalities and drive a certain amount of energy towards finding ways that we could help each other, both for the benefit of the centers as well as the benefit of users. So this is, again, a bit of an eye chart of all the different centers and facilities and institutes that we had in the room. And I think it illustrates a snapshot. It is by no means all inclusive, but it's a snapshot of some of the programs that we have in our nation. And so these are all centers, part of the NNCI network, the National Nanotechnology Coordinated Infrastructure. They're all based out of universities funded by the NSF. These are the NSRCs, Nanoscale Science Research Centers, based at DOE National Labs. Very similar model, and similar mission, but slightly different. We have other nanotechnology-based facilities, so funded by NSF and NIH, as well as another one by NSF, a virtual one. I want to make sure that we don't forget some of the light and neutron sources. Again, these are not centers that are explicitly nanoscience or nanotechnology, but I would argue that almost every experiment going in there has some aspect of looking at things at the limit of size and precision. And then we also included some Manufacturing USA institutes. These are these are public-private partnerships that really focus a little bit further on the TRL level and tackle some of those kind of the science of synthesis, the science of manufacturing, the scale-up challenges as a way to pass the baton off from maybe some of the basic science onto these Manufacturing USA sites. Again, this is not inclusive of all user facilities and shared infrastructure, but it's a real good illustration of the potential out there. But frankly, there's not a lot of coordination between any of these centers at a large national scale. So what did we talk about? We talked about sharing best practices. This is a recognition that SSURF clearly has answered the bell And I think that SSURF has a role to play. I think the federal government has a role to play. We need not have to reinvent the wheel at every single one of these centers. One thing that we talked about is how challenging it can be to have an academic-based user facility facilitate industry research because of the time scale or some of the contracts or IP agreements that are so challenging. What if we could actually work together and create a common language, a common understanding across these various programs? We talked about collaboration and communication, this idea that the basic science folks want to be informed by the more industry-based centers and vice versa. The idea that one user facility might not be able to meet all the needs of any single user, and being able to communicate across these centers and have a more combined approach would be really powerful. And then, a lot of you are interested in the outreach aspect of user facilities, making sure that we can cross-promote, both for the benefit of the users to better understand the menu of options that they have, but also for our staff. I think that our staff are in a very unique position here, and sometimes it's useful for them to be able to network with people who are in a similar kind of professional collaborator place in their career, and opportunities to grow. So anyway, that's kind of what we are working on. I think there's a lot of parallels with what SSURF is doing, and we look forward to continuing to work with this community. I did want to mention a few other things that are just on the radar in terms of things that this group should be aware of in terms of what's going on in DC. So the first thing is NASM, that's the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. They review the NNI every 4 years. And we have a little bit of a hand in terms of what that review looks like. And this year, they are basically starting up. They received the funding for this review just a month or so ago. They're standing up their review committee. And we've asked them to actually focus on shared infrastructure, which oftentimes means user facilities, and really take a hard look in terms of how we're doing regarding that mission, that grand goal of democratizing science, recognizing that we are open access facilities, but that there are still barriers to that access, whether it's awareness, whether that's location, whether that is other kind of unconscious bias aspects. So wanting to really look at the communities that we are serving, do an analysis in terms of where are the people that maybe could benefit from user facilities, but for whatever reason are not, and provide some guidance in terms of things, not only to you, but frankly to the federal agencies, to empower them to make this a priority and give you the resources and incentives to help you achieve these goals. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the Department of Energy, and Linda Horton might mention this in her talk in a few hours, BSAC is the Basic Energy Sciences Advisory Committee. BES is the funder for the nanocenters, the light sources, and the neutron sources. And they have been charged to evaluate the NSRCs, the Nanoscale Science Research Centers, kind of recognizing that this system was stood up 15, 20 years ago when the field was far more nascent, and recognizing that they were built up to address that need of an emerging field. And now that nanoscience and nanotechnology is much more established, what should we do in terms of supporting it in a possibly different way? And I think that is true of so many of our sciences and so many of our federal agencies, they're constantly trying to think about how to evolve and respond to the needs of today, as opposed to simply continuing what we've been doing for decades on end. And so with that, I'll close on a little bit of an advertisement in terms of what we're doing to look forward. So we have this symposium at the National Academies here in DC, where we are going to be celebrating the 20th anniversary of the law that created the NNI, but really looking back in order to look forward. Trying to look across those 5 goals: the research, the commercialization, the shared infrastructure, the workforce development, and the responsible development EHS aspects of the NNI. And we're going to look back and see what are things that we did really well and should do more of, what are things that we did really well and maybe we could deprioritize, and what are things that maybe represent gaps. And so this is going to include a lot of thought leaders from across the country, and so many so that this slide can't even contain them all. Here's slide number 2 of all the wonderful people that we're going to have there. I will point out that we have Arthi Prabhakar, that's basically my boss at OSTP. She's the advisor to the science advisor to the president, and which is a cabinet level position for the first time under President Biden. We have Neil Lane, who was originally the science advisor to Clinton during the creation of the NNI, and Ron Wyden, who sponsored the bill to create the NNI. And then it's always fun to advertise that we have an astronaut coming to talk about how nanotechnology has assisted in space exploration and her research as a scientist. So I hope many of you will come to the National Academies and join us on March 5th of next year. So with that, I will close and just say thank you. Please do reach out. There's a number of ways to get in touch with me. I really hope that we can help serve to amplify what you are all doing, celebrate your success, push up some of your priorities, understand your concerns. That's a lot of what we're here to do. And we can't do that if we aren't hearing from you. So please do reach out in any way, shape, or form. And just thank you to Dan and to Lily and to the entire SURF community. I don't know if we have time for questions. I'm happy to answer them now or at any time. Happy to talk to any of you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you very much. Yes, I wanted to prompt the audience. If you had any comments or a question, you could put into the chat. We have a few minutes where we could have a conversation here or just get some more detail if there was anything you wanted to ask Brandon about. I mentioned that this in-person event that was in September that Brandon mentioned, where SURF, we were there to help with the agenda, in essence, to convene the group following their more formal conversations and enable the kind of serendipitous interactions afterwards while people were having a snack, even some very uniquely labeled cupcakes with the seal of the President of the United States, which was a nice touch at this meeting in the Eisenhower building. But very seriously, what we heard there were first time sort of dot connecting in people's brains about if this is what is happening over at that facility within this lab, knowing what we have going on in our labs, we should be speaking more, and here's how we could leverage each other's resources and at least continue this conversation to be aware of who is doing what, all with the mission of maximizing the impact of the commercialization, the types of manifestation of nanotechnology that are really helping to solve problems and basically create entire new industries here for the country and the world. And let's see, let me check. Brandon, thank you. You just put in some more information in the chat there. This also will be. I can't help myself. You know, anytime the White House puts out a press release about something that you did, I can't help but share it. So if people want to learn more, that's a short summary of what we did, and I look forward to working with all of you at both at SURF as well as individual organizations. I think that I would challenge each of you to think about
how your institution can benefit from working with maybe an institution that you didn't even realize was your neighbor, as well as how your users would benefit from closer collaboration with some of these programs that are outside of your program, outside of your funding agency. There's a lot more out there than I certainly realized.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also recommend the supplement to the previous year's budget, the booklet that I've read a few times with fantastic detail and that Branden's provided both in hard copy. Of course, it would also be online. Is notwithstanding being dozens of pages, is a fascinating read and will give you some insights, almost a behind the curtain, although it's not intended to be behind any given curtain, but really a behind the scenes detailed look at the scope of nanotechnology research happening across the country. It's inspiring on its own, and then also gets the wheels turning in your head, no matter what type of science and research you're involved in, as to how nanotechnology plays a role, and the other aspects of nanotech research that are happening that probably should be on your radar, just as it's relevant to the context of the type of research that you personally, your team, and your laboratory could be working on. All right, so there aren't any other questions coming in. Then Branden, let me say thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back again at 11 o'clock Eastern. And this session and all of our sessions are going to be recorded. We'll have them later on our YouTube channel and made available through our website. So if you wanted to revisit what Branden was speaking about, we'll share the information about that March event that he described as well. And thank you all for your initial attention here during the first hour and a half of our meeting. I will see you again shortly at 11 p.m. Eastern.